Okay, I think we'll get started now, and then people can kind of come in if there's a few more to come. So thanks everyone so much for coming along to the Creative Europe Desk Ireland Culture Office briefing on the i-Portunus call for cultural heritage. That's great. This is the fourth in these calls, so we've been delighted to be able to promote it like this. So I'll just start off with a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to run through a presentation. It should take about 20 minutes. And during that, it would be great if everyone could mute themselves and turn off their camera. We will be recording this. So just to be aware of that. Another thing is we'll have lots of time at the end for questions and answers. Throughout the presentation, if something comes up, just log it in the chat, and we'll bring that to the room at the end. So I'm here along with my colleague Aoife Tunney. I also have another colleague who works across all the desks, Leona Cully, and she'll be here to answer questions as well. So let's just kick off. So cultural heritage, as many of you know, is really a very important strategic area for the EU, and it's growing in importance. I know many of you will have been involved in some way or aware of the European Year of Cultural Heritage in 2018, and that was really a game changer for the Commission, and there's a lot of legacies that have come out of that, and a renewed commitment to put cultural heritage really at the forefront of funding for the creative and cultural sectors. So the key document now that really grounds a lot of future funding and future policy is the European Framework for Action on Cultural Heritage. And really this enshrines the fact that Europe recognizes the importance to all of the citizens of Europe of cultural heritage. In the next program, so many of you are aware that we're entering into the next 7-year funding program. So the next Creative Europe program will be launching in the next month. We anticipate it to be by the end of April. And cultural heritage will really be key within that program. So it's going to be very clearly one of the overarching objectives of the whole program is to preserve cultural heritage. And as part of that, an overall focus of the next program will be what they're calling targeted sectoral approaches. And cultural heritage has been identified as one of those sectors. So it's just something to bear in mind as we move to the next program, and you're thinking about project ideas. There will be opportunities through special calls for the cultural heritage sector in particular. So let's kick off with this i-Portunus call. So who is this call open for? So it's very broad. It's open to artists, creators, and cultural professionals who are active in the field of cultural heritage. It's open to anyone over the age of 18 of all educational qualifications and levels of experience, and you must be legally residing in one of the 40 Creative Europe countries. This call actually relates back. It's a final bit of the budget from 2020. So under this call, UK applications, either as an applicant to travel or the UK as a destination, are eligible under this call. The call is open. You can either apply as an individual or within the context of a group of up to 5 people. So what is this for? And one of the things that's brilliant, I think, about this call is it's very broad. It's been kept deliberately broad. So the range and scope of what you can do with this funding is quite broad. So you could, the award is intended to foster international collaborations, production residencies, or professional development. It is not project funding as such. It's there to partially fund the cost of travel, including transport and accommodation to another or multiple Creative Europe countries. This funding, this mobility can be achieved in either a continuous or segmented trip. So you can take multiple trips over from between 7 and 60 days. Sorry, I hope that made sense. So the i-Portunus sets out objectives for the mobility. So your application will be addressing one of these objectives. The first one is international collaboration. So you have been working within the framework of an international project, and you're meeting to exchange knowledge or best practice examples. You also could be undertaking what they call a production-orientated residency. So this is more some kind of project outcome in a way. And then this one is very interesting. You can travel for professional development, and this is really very broad. So you could take part in network meetings, attend showcases, workshops, master classes, any kind of training outside of formal education. So let's just go right into the how to apply. So your starting point and what you need to do in the first instance is organize a project with either a host institution, a partner, so a peer, in another European country. You need to be able to describe the project meeting and its main objective, obviously meeting what the objectives of i-Portunus are. And you need to explain how this mobility will help you to achieve your objective. And then you'll need to provide documents to show that you have made plans with a partner and that your partner is committed to your project and hosting you in their organization. Sorry, just a delay there. Sorry, the downside to Zoom. So what you will need to do to apply, so I've actually gone through this and created a dummy application myself and assisted people in previous calls. It's very, very straightforward. The first thing you need to do, so all the applications are made online through the i-Portunus website. And the first thing you'll need to do is create an online account. A lot of the application, and the key thing is your application is made online, but it will let you save your application as a draft. So, you can work on it over the course of days or however long. So within the form, you'll be asked to provide your personal details, your education, your work experience, details of your planned mobility. So the dates, destination, and all of that. And this in turn, I think we go into it, but this in turn will kind of calculate your grant because it's a flat fee grant based on your destination and duration of your trip. You'll also be asked to include information on your project. So the description of your project, why you need mobility to achieve this, the preparation that might have gone in, and crucially, the impact you think this mobility will have. Also, because i-Portunus, and I should have said this at the top, this is the last call under what was a pilot program during the last Creative Europe program, but in the next one, this will become a permanent action, and they want to collect as much. So I think someone just needs to mute themselves there. Apologies. And basically, they want to collect as much feedback as possible in order to improve it for future calls. So do take the time to provide the feedback they ask for. So what you will need to include. So those are all, that information is all collected within the online form. And then there's a number of documents that you'll need to attach separately. So first of all, you'll need to include a short CV. You can also include some additional information in the form of an artistic CV or portfolio. You'll also need to include details around supporting your plan. So you'll need to, whoever you're meeting, your host, you'll need them to issue you with an invitation letter. Any kind of documentation around any meetings you've made. So I imagine within this sector, there could be a number of applications that will deal, under professional development. So if you've actually made plans to meet other institutions or other artists or your peers, you'll need to have some form of confirmation of that. If it's more of a production orientated application, you'll need to have some form of kind of co-production agreement and contracts with other institutions and partners. So if you've been invited or if you already have a bilateral project that, you're hoping to achieve, within the framework of next year, or this year, I should say, till the end of the year, this could be a way to actually go and achieve that, but you'll need to include more project information there. Finally, a signed declaration of honor. So this is confirming you're eligible and you do not fall within the exclusion criteria. And all this means is you're not directly employed by anyone involved in the i-Portunus consortia. So that basically is, we have a list that you'll see. So I don't imagine that's any of you. So what can you use these, what type of projects would this fund, or what type of mobilities? Probably the most useful one in my opinion is, as a preparation grant, as a way to kind of test ideas, test new methodologies, maybe identify or work on developing those partnerships if your longer term goal is international or cross-border collaborations. Because one thing that's really interesting here is that the guidelines state that your proposal will be evaluated more favorably if you can show it's part of a longer term collaboration. And the potential there for the Commission is that this could be a preparation or kind of a seed investment in a way, in something that could have a longer term impact if your goal is to create a larger scale project or collaboration down the line. It's also a way to achieve smaller scale projects. If you're looking, because I mean, obviously, capacity is always an issue for this sector, and indeed all the arts and culture sectors when starting to work internationally or, kind of transnationally. So this is a way to kind of maybe kind of test a small scale project that you've been invited to participate in. It's a way to meet with potential partners, so you might have met people at different kind of conferences over the years or networks, or, you've identified someone who's working in a way that you're really interested in learning from. This is a way to kind of test that out. And then obviously, it's a way to attend international networking conferences, workshops, seminars, or training. So I'll just talk briefly about a group mobility. So this is up to 5 people, as I mentioned at the top. And the crucial thing here is that one person is designated to make the application on behalf of the group. A group can be from, say, 5 different countries or 4 different countries, and they can return to their different countries, but the mobility has to happen in a single country. So you would be coming from, say, Ireland, France, Spain, and possibly meeting in Portugal for your project, and then returning to your home countries. Though you're coming from different countries, roughly you'll be arriving and leaving the destination country at the same time. And you have to be really clear that while it's a group involved in the application, the mobility itself has to focus on a single project. And again, the funding is there only for the people that partake in the mobility itself. So this is, in a way, it's the limits of it. This funding is travel funding. It's funding specifically for mobility, and it's only for the person who themselves travel. Obviously, it's kind of funny to be sitting here talking about a physical mobility award at the height of COVID-19, and certainly here in Ireland being on pretty much full lockdown. And so, the reality is you will be making this application on the basis and planning on the basis of a physical mobility, but with the understanding that COVID-19 will be here throughout the eligibility period. So for what we say to people now is, obviously you're making your application on the basis of a physical mobility, but at the back of your head, you need to be coming up with an alternative plan. So i-Portunus has been very open and transparent about the fact and understanding of the fact that they will need to employ kind of maximum flexibility in the context of what we're all going through. So what they've said is they will allow, so you have your award and then circumstances change. They'll allow you to change your destination up to 10 days before you travel. However, the per diems, and I'll go into this in a bit, the per diems are calculated based on your original destination country. And then I imagine this second one will probably be one that is more likely, certainly from, you know, if you were kind of thinking about where we are now, you'll be able to propose an alternative plan. So this is one based on what they're calling a blended or digital, so virtual mobilities for achieving your proposal. So this is really key. So while you know, it's going to potentially change from being a physical mobility to a virtual or blended mobility, your proposal is the same. So what you've said you're going to do and the outcomes, you know, attached to that will be the same. So as long as you can show that what you're achieving in terms of, you know, outcomes are the same, they will honor your grant. You will need to look at what are the new qualitative elements that come out of you know, come out of the virtual mobility. So, you know, I think it's realistically, it wouldn't be enough to say, obviously, you're going to kind of record or have virtual meetings. You'll need to think of, you know, if you are having an event where you're meeting together to test new methodologies and look at new ways of working, you'll need to think, you know, yes, you're recording it, but how are you going to share it? So it's about kind of looking. So I think don't get too, you know, too caught up in, you know, because the saying a new qualitative element with a tangible result, but it's just about kind of building value in. So if you're saying that you're going to do something virtually, build the value in of how you'll share that and how you'll use that and how that relates back to your original project. Again, the amount in your original application will be maintained. Oh, sorry, I think I've gone back again. Sorry, disaster. So one thing we found, Aoife and myself have found, is that i-Portunus itself is very responsive and open to people getting in touch. So if you have any questions that we can answer, this is the email here that you get in touch, and that's really the COVID plan. So once you receive your grant offer and you realize you'll have to make changes, get in touch as soon as possible. Propose your alternative plan of accomplishing the objectives outlined in your proposal, and you know, demonstrate how your alternative plan will bring an additional qualitative element. So the budget here it's very simple. And again, this is not project funding. It's a budget that is tied to your destination country and the duration of your stay, of your mobility. So first of all, the budget is fixed at an amount of €350 per person for transport, and per diems are determined on a case-by-case basis. So you'll look in the guidelines and you'll see they have, I think, 3 tiers of countries, and and it's related to a cost and overnight cost. So Ireland is, for instance, in the top tier in terms of cost of living. So they calculate that at €80 per night. And then say Latvia might be in the second or third. So it's an automatic calculation with a maximum amount awarded of €2,650 per person. So this means, taking into account the fixed amount for travel, the maximum per person is €300 for the award. And that's per person. So in the context of a group application, one person is making an application, but the total award would be for the 5 people involved. So the i-Portunus has said is at the moment 500,000 available for this call. So they estimate that would be 250 to get funded. Just going through quickly the eligibility criteria. Applications are made online and in English. You need to include all the information requested in the application form and the attached documents. Sorry, this is a mistake from the last one, but it's applicants from the cultural heritage field. So either artists or cultural professionals working in the field of cultural heritage over the age of 18 and currently residing in a Creative Europe country, and the destination of the mobility must also be a Creative Europe country. So here we go. So the departure date has to be on or after the 16th of June, and the final return date from the mobility must be no later than the 30th of November. The total length of the mobility must be between 7 and 60 days, and that includes any travel days, and you cannot have previously received any i-Portunus mobility support through the previous calls. So here's a note in the guidelines: artists with a disability, if they need to self-declare their access needs and financial support, additional financial support will be offered on a case-by-case basis. So that's something to bear in mind as well, because there are real costs associated with travel and mobilities if you are an artist or a cultural worker with a disability. So again, they're quite clear how your application will be evaluated. And again, this is all in the guidelines. So two independent external expert evaluators will assess each application and score it across or against the following criteria. So the relevance and necessity, so needing to demonstrate that you require this mobility to achieve your stated outcomes. So that's 20 points. And then the preparation and feasibility, the extent to which the project and mobility have been well prepared. So this is really about building the case that essentially you're not just doing this for the funding. There's kind of been a previous kind of rationale or previous communication and previous relationships built up that support your argument for this mobility. And then finally, the outcomes, what you aim to achieve as a result of your mobility. So, I mean, as much as possible, and obviously it's related to, it's proportionate to the fact that this is a small award, but as much as you can kind of show that the outcomes will last beyond obviously the duration of this mobility, that they can potentially feed back into, you know, the aims or the work of each of your organizations or your individual artistic practice. So the benefit will last longer. If, as we expect, there will be a lot of digital or virtual outputs, you know, devise ways in which you can share that beyond, you know, beyond the group or the people directly involved in the mobility. So those are just things to bear in mind. So finally, the dates, the submission date for this call is the 15th of April, and you'll be notified in about a month. For the purposes of this one, if you travel from the 16th of July and return by the 30th of November. So just quickly look, because there were 4 calls over the last program in 2020, and approximately 1 out of every 6 applications from Ireland were funded. So we did quite well. They were across a number of art forms, theatre, visual arts, dance, and curatorial practice. The travel destinations were Serbia, Germany, Portugal, and Denmark. Those were the top. I think there were 2 that went to Germany. And we do actually have, and Leona might share that, we do have a couple of i-Portunus case studies included in our last publication, where we published a number of Irish case studies from the Creative Europe program. So just before we stop and take some questions, looking ahead, so now we don't have a definitive date, but I would anticipate it will be by the end of April. They will launch the new Creative Europe program, and at the same time they'll launch a number of calls. So this should be by late April, and probably early May to mid-May, we will have an event where we launch the program, we go through all the published guidelines, and we talk about the calls. So that's something to look out for. In terms of the cultural heritage sector, we are planning an event along with the Heritage Council on the 27th of May. So this will be specifically targeted to the cultural heritage sector, and we'll have a number of essentially best practice or case study presentations. So that's one to look out for. We're also hosting an architecture event where we'll have a representative from the European Commission talk about the strategic and policy priorities around architecture and the funding in the new program. So that will be the 20th of May. So I think we'll just stop now. I'll just stop sharing the presentation, and if there's any questions, please come in and we'll do our best to answer them.
Hi, yes, so we have some questions there. First, a basic one. Will the PowerPoint be shared with the participants?
Yes.
We will, and then we're also going to publish the video to our YouTube and put that on our website. And then another question, if funding is awarded, is it available before the trip is undertaken?
My understanding is yes, because you'll be notified in May and the first travel for this is in July. So that is my understanding.
Okay. And then another question, if I'm an individual artist with a project, how can I find a host organization that can accept it?
Just to come in there, sorry, I just remembered, Katie, do you remember from the last, now I must find it on the i-Portunus website, they have a link to another website that gives details about host organizations that I've done previously, that I've hosted in previous calls. So we could pass on that link when we do our follow-up. Yeah.
Great, perfect. Thanks, Aoife.
I mean, that's a case where that's usually through, or where it can often work best is when it's through your own kind of research or interest. And I think, you know, what you'll probably find is if you start researching and you see an organization who's working in a way that you're really interested in and you think your practice fits in with, I think you'll find that there's usually a lot of kind of generosity in terms of hosting or meeting with you. In your case, it might work best to frame it as, you know, this is part of what you're applying to do. So, you know, you're kind of saying I might travel, you know, to Georgia and I want to meet with a number of artist-run spaces or museums. You reach out to them ahead of time. So you don't necessarily need to have a formal project in place. You just need to have some communication saying that we're interested in meeting and talking with you. So it's also about how you frame it. Maybe you're using this award as a kind of a fact-finding mission because this is an area that you want to develop. Okay,
thanks, Katie. And then does the destination of the travel have to be a European country?
Well, the Creative Europe countries are broader than member states, but it does need to be in one of the 40 Creative Europe countries, and we can share that list with you after.
Yeah, and I shared it earlier. If you look up to the chat, I did the link to where i-Portunus lists those countries, so have a look there. Another question here, is this funding only available to cultural professionals working in smaller organisations, or does it apply to larger institutions as well?
It absolutely would apply to larger institutions, and you would probably be in a good position to be able to demonstrate that this is part of a longer term project or collaboration. So I know when we were speaking, you know, over a year ago at a network meeting with the Commission, and we were speaking with the person in the Commission responsible for i-Portunus, they were saying that they want to see this used as something that could potentially be seen as a, you know, a development tool to a larger Creative Europe or a larger European project. So I think in that case, a larger institution is, would be very valuable to them.
Okay. Can local authorities make applications?
Yeah, so it would be you within the local authority. So a local authority could apply, excuse me, but it would be you as an individual making the application. So it's for an individual's travel.
Okay.
So that's another, very good example of how this could be used within the context of, a larger or more established collaboration or project.
Okay, thanks, Katie. So I don't see any more questions here, but people can keep adding them to the chat. Are there any other general questions that people usually ask, Katie, that you can remember?
I think probably the most questions we've both really received have been around COVID and making changes due to COVID. So it's kind of a funny one, but our advice is really that you're applying now, based on a physical travel, but have it in your head and start developing your plan B based on a virtual mobility.
Okay. Is feedback given to unsuccessful applicants?
My understanding is that it is, when you get your decision, but we can check that because it's certainly when there's a process of external evaluation and scoring in other awards, the Commission has always made that available, but we can double check that for you.
Okay.
I just see a question just around, did you see that, Lona? Is the Creative Europe Desk Ireland planning to continue its own travel and application preparation funding? So this is actually, it's the Arts Council. So the Arts Council has its own mobility award that at the moment is suspended because A, there's no travel, and B, the new program hasn't been launched, but we would anticipate it continuing, and it was intended for people who are preparing to make an application under Creative Europe. So the intention is that would continue.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Sorry, I missed that. I have a link here. There's some stories on the i-Portunus website of people who have been funded with pictures and details. So I'll post that link in here as well so people can have a look at that. And so it seems to have gone quiet. So should we wrap up?
Should we wrap up? I mean, this is the final opportunity if there's any questions. I don't think so. Okay, I think people are leaving. So do follow up with us. Do follow up with us after with any questions. We're there. We're more than happy to help you. And just really to kind of keep in mind, just the final, I guess, comment about the next Creative Europe program. So the fact of the matter is the silver lining of the COVID crisis in terms of Creative Europe is that they've achieved a much bigger budget than was initially looking, like would be approved. So at the moment, the overall Creative Europe budget is 2.55 billion. And there is the sense from the Commission that they want to front load the funding over the initial years of the program in order, because they recognize the incredible damage that the COVID crisis is doing to the cultural and creative sectors. So it's really something to kind of bear in mind that those first 2 years, it could be a great time to apply. And the fact that the cultural heritage sector is so key, within Creative Europe and the European funding as a whole. So it's really something, to kind of keep in touch with us, come along to our event on the 27th, and that's really it. So thanks everyone for coming. I guess we'll say goodbye or à bientôt, and just get in touch if you have any questions. Thanks so much.